List season continues here on this edition of Locked On Vols, your Wednesday edition. Top 5 upperclassmen in spring practice who helped themselves out the most. Plus, Caleb Herring has committed to the University of Tennessee. And where are some former Vols projected to be taken in the NFL draft next week? All that and more coming up on this edition of Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, welcome into Locked On Vols, your team every single day. I'm your host, Eric Kane. You can find this on Twitter @_Kaner and @Locked On Vols. Locked On Vols, your first listen each and every day. If you're new to the show, welcome to it. I do radio in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I write for the rival site covering the University of Tennessee. That's volquest.com. And like I said in the cold open, we are going to continue on milking out spring football practice by discussing the top 5 upperclassmen who helped themselves out the most over the course of last month. I had someone on YouTube that chimed in, and hey, feel free. Always comment, always DM, reply to the tweets. If you guys know my email, send me an email. Anything you guys want to talk about on the show, feel free. I mean, you guys are more than welcome to chime in. I mean, I got to fill 30 minutes every single day. I say I got to. It's a privilege, and I love doing it, but sometimes it is challenging. So I had a YouTuber comment on yesterday's show saying, man, you're really milking out this spring practice topic, aren't you? And I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely, I'm milking out this spring practice topic. You know why? Because we're not going to have football for 6 months. So 100%. You milk as much as you possibly can. But I think these are good topics to discuss heading into the offseason. These are offseason topics. You know, we discussed our top 5 storylines from spring practice, the 5 biggest things that stood out to me. That was on Friday's show. On Monday, we did top 5 freshmen, or, we had a couple different lists here. But today, we're going to do top 5 upperclassmen who helped themselves out the most. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and start at number 5. A couple of these guys we talked about plenty of times, so they're going to be on the list. But at number 5, here's the guy that could potentially start for the University of Tennessee this year at offensive tackle. His name is J.J. Crawford. Tyler Steen was all the rage, coming in via the transfer portal, or potentially coming in via the transfer portal. Took a visit to Tennessee. Ultimately, the former Vanderbilt left tackle decided to go to Alabama. So Tennessee, unless something makes complete sense, I don't know if Tennessee's going to take an offensive tackle in the transfer portal. They might. I'm not putting it out there, but I think things moved up the priority list. As we kind of spoke on yesterday during Twitter Tuesday. Linebacker, offensive tackle, running back. I would kind of put all those in a blender and say, if one makes sense, you absolutely bring one in, but you do feel better about the position, I think, now than you did going into spring practice. And I think offensive tackle is the same way. I'm not saying Tennessee can't get help and can get better at those positions. Lord knows, I'm critical of the linebacker position, but you do feel better about it now. But nonetheless, J.J. Crawford, he split time with Gerald Mincey at left tackle this spring practice. And depending on which guy graded out higher the day before was the guy getting the reps with the first team moving forward. I can't tell you. I don't know for a fact who was starting the majority of the time. I know the scrimmage that I saw, J.J. Crawford was your starting left tackle. But this is a guy, I sound like Mel Keiper, who we'll hear more from later in the show. This is a guy that's coming in to his Tennessee tenure. The coaching staff really liked him, right? He was the lone February traditional signing day get for Tennessee last year. Remember, technically, Josh Heupel's first signing day was Jeremy Pruitt holdovers for the month of December, right? But J.J. Crawford was signed out of junior college in that February. He went ahead and played a spring season because of COVID, played an entire spring season, got to campus in late July, and then went into camp. He pretty much played football year-round, right? And that's tough. He just got too late. He got here too late, never had an opportunity to really give himself a chance, if that makes sense. I think the thought was you wanted to move Cade Maze inside at some point in time last year, but Tennessee never could. But now J.J. Crawford's here. He knows the system. He knows the coaches. And I think he had a really, really good spring practice. So potentially J.J. Crawford, if he keeps it up, he might be your starting left tackle heading into the season. Or Gerald Mincey could steal that from him. Or Tennessee still could go out and get somebody via the transfer portal. But J.J. Crawford comes in at number 5. At number 4 is Shayla Mccullough. Got a couple of safeties on this list. We'll get to the other one here a little bit later. But leadership. Coaches didn't say a bad word about Jalen Mccullough nor Trayvon Flowers this entire spring practice. This is a guy that came in as a freshman, started the back half of his freshman campaign. He looks like a linebacker. Sometimes he runs like a linebacker, but he's super athletic. He's got good ball skills. think he had 3 interceptions last year with a cast on his hand. He's a guy that needs to play better. But with Tennessee's lack of depth in the secondary this spring, I think he took advantage of those situations. And, at points in times, it was a matter of, will this guy start moving forward? If Christian Charles, I've said it plenty of times, if Christian Charles last year was healthy, I think he would have played for either Mccullough and or Flowers at some point or another, just because Tennessee was so bad at that position. But I think Jalen Mccullough had a really, really good spring and Willie Martinez loves to play upperclassmen in the secondary, loves to play his veterans. I think Jalen Mccullough really helped himself out there. Jalen Hyde at number 3, nobody, in my opinion, helped themselves out more, potentially Christian Charles, than Jalen Hyde did. A guy that you got to fill 2 wide receiver spots, a guy that had tons and tons of potentials. We talk about it all the time, and it never materialized. He got complacent. We heard audio from him on last week's show. He wasn't training the way he's supposed to, and he fell out of the rotation. But he started putting in the work as soon as the bowl practice season was over. As soon as that bowl game loss to Purdue, he started putting in the work, and he's put on 20 pounds, and he had a very, very good spring practice. And he didn't make a whole lot of plays when I was there a couple of Saturdays ago, but as I've mentioned, he did catch a long touchdown pass. We'll call it 50 yards from Hendon Hooker in the 3rd spring scrimmage game that kind of wrapped up spring practice last week. So Jalen Hyde will be a starter on this football team this year moving forward, and that's because of the work he put in spring practice. Number 2 is that other safety, Trayvon Flowers. I know a lot of you guys are getting tired of talking about these veteran safeties. You want to see new guys in there, and I hear you. But I mean, I hate to sound, and again, I do back this up. I truly do. Jeremy Pruitt said it all the time regarding the quarterback position, and I know a lot of Tennessee fans just got tired of hearing it because the results on the field weren't changing. And sooner or later, you do have to make a change up, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and not seeing different results, right? And that's point in times what was happening at the quarterback position prior to last season. But Trayvon Flowers has had a good spring. He had a great fall camp last year. We'll see how he does in fall camp this year. And ultimately, hopefully, he can make a Theo Jackson-like leap here in his 5th year. He's a guy that needs to put in the work off the field to see his work get better on the field, studying the tape. Again, and I saw a little bit of that in that second scrimmage when he was saying screen, and he allowed, Tamari McDonald to go and make a couple plays behind the line of scrimmage on those screen passes. That's the type of stuff that Theo Jackson talked about last offseason, to where he put in the work off the field, watched tons and tons of tape, and then allowed him to be in better position to go out and make plays. So Trayvon Flowers, a veteran, has played so much football, battled through injuries throughout the early portion of his career. Let's see if he can put it all together this year. He had a great, great spring. And then number 1 in the list is Christian Charles. Whether it's safety, whether it's cornerback, whether it's the star position, Christian Charles will play football. Even if he doesn't start, he will get starter snaps, like I've mentioned. The weapon, the Swiss Army knife. And I think that he's not just versatile, but he's a guy that can stand out and excel in whichever position you put him in. He is a former quarterback in high school, and that's why Jeremy Pruitt got him. Jeremy Pruitt loved quarterbacks and guys with the balls in their hands, a wide receiver, to play defensive back at the next level. And yeah, it's a tough transition. I don't think Allante Taylor and Bryce Thompson and even Trayvon Flowers, remember guys, Trayvon Flowers was in that conversation too when those guys were freshmen in 2018. I don't believe those guys would have played and started so early on in their career if they didn't have to, if Jeremy Pruitt wasn't forced to play them, right? But Christian Charles in this conversation, he is such a skilled athlete. He looks like a natural corner is what we're hearing, and that's not even his home position. So wherever he plays, he will play, and whether it's a 6-man off the bench type situation, whether he comes in and certain packages, he will get his snaps and he will play. I think Christian Charles, number 1, helped himself out the most this spring practice. So let's go back and revisit it all. At 5, this is the top 5 Tennessee upperclassmen that helped themselves out the most this spring practice. Might not have been on the verge of losing a starting position, might be on the verge of getting a starting position, or quite frankly, just getting better at their craft, and maybe they can take that next step and be even better on the football field come the season of 2022. At number 5, offensive tackle J.J. Crawford. At number 4, strong safety Jalen Mccullough. At number 3, wide receiver Jalen Hyde. At number 2, free safety Trayvon Flowers. And at number 1, defensive back, versatile safety, cornerback, nickel, His name is Christian Charles. That's your top 5 Tennessee upperclassmen from spring practice. All right, guys, we'll continue on. Tennessee had a new commit for the class of 2023, and it's a familiar name. We'll tell you all about Caleb Herring when Locked On Vols returns. But time to talk about Built Bar. The new Puff Bars are fantastic, 100% covered in chocolate. They're marshmallowy, they're cinnamony, they are churro-y, full-fledged. They taste fantastic, and it's much better than your average candy bar. You go from about 240 calories from a candy bar to 130 calories for your average Built Bar. 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, but 17 grams of protein, including in that new Puff Bar, infused with protein. And hey, I'm going to the beach for 2 weekends in the month of May. I'm really excited about it. Got a beach house down on Longboat Key. I go with my family every year. So pumped about that. That's on Memorial Day weekend. 2 weeks prior to that, going to Tybee Island. So excited. We all need to look our best when we take those shirts off, when we put those 2 pieces on for the ladies that are listening to the show right now. And Built Bars can help you out and get in that area code that you want to be in right now. Go to Built.com. Use that promo code LOCK15, and you're going to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off. That is at Built.com. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. And time for a big announcement. You guys have heard about me promoting this the last couple of weeks. But starting Thursday, April 28th, tune in to the Locked On NFL Draft's live coverage of the NFL Draft. All 3 days, real-time analysis from an extensive lineup of experts and insiders. And for those of you dying to know about who your favorite team will take, catch Odyssey and Locked On NFL Mock Draft special hosted by Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson all week long leading up to the first pick. So Locked On NFL Draft, that's on the Locked On NFL YouTube page, and that's going to be from April 28th, 7 o'clock to April 29th, 6:30, April 30th, all the way to 11:30 at night. You can also catch the Odyssey NFL Mock Draft April 18th through the 22nd and the 25th, and that is also on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast YouTube page. So plenty of preview content to get into as we look forward to the NFL Draft next week. And we'll have a little bit of notes on those guys from Tennessee that are entering the NFL Draft. That's coming up in segment number 3. Okay, so Tennessee rolled in commit number 8. Their 8th commit number 8 of the class of 2023. That came down the pipe Tuesday morning. His name is Caleb Herring. Well, Herring, okay, well, that name sound familiar? Elijah Herring, a guy that we spoke on. He was on our top 5 freshman list on yesterday's show. He was a 2022 signee at linebacker, an early enrollee, and is already here on campus. This is his younger brother. At the time, and like I mentioned on yesterday's show, we thought that Tennessee just took Elijah to get Caleb. As time went on, they really began to like Elijah, and they think Elijah is going to be a player. They really do. Caleb is going to be a player. He is a really good talent. I'll tell you all about him right here. He showed Tennessee over Georgia, Miami, USC. He's tagged per Rivals as the second best prospect in the state. He's the best prospect in the state. I'll tell you that right now. He is the number 1 prospect in the state of Tennessee by all the other publications except Rivals, and I would agree with the other publications there. He's listed as the number 119th overall prospect in the country. That is per Rivals, and he already makes the 5th in-state commit for Tennessee. Again, I'm going to continue to hammer home this stat as it continues to increase as this class goes on, because Josh Heupel got to the party late, and all these in-state prospects didn't know Josh Heupel last year, so the in-state haul was not great. You had 2 in-state commits for Josh Heupel for the class of 2022. You're already at 5. 5 of 8 have come from the state of Tennessee. He joins 5-star quarterback Nico Iamaleava, 4-star tight end Ethan Davis, 4-star lineman Trevor Duncan, 3-star defensive lineman Nathan Robinson, 3-star defensive back Jack Luttrell, 3-star offensive lineman Aiden Bussell, and 3-star wide receiver Nate Spillman. The in-state prospects in this class, Herring now links up with Trevor Duncan, Nathan Robinson, Aiden Bussell, and Nate Spillman. So this is from his coach, Will Kreisky. This is Riverdale High School from the Mid-State. I've got my whole write-up at VolQuest.com, as I do always the impact analysis whenever Tennessee gets a new commit. You guys can check it out there. But here's the quote from his high school football coach, Will Kreisky. Caleb is a good person. I've never gotten a negative report on him from any teacher in the building. The principal, she loves him. And it's not because he's a high-profile football player, but it's because he's a good human being. Yeah, he's always yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. He'll talk to anyone in the hallway and always has a smile on his face. His mom has done a great job. He truly is a kind-hearted young man off the field. Caleb is a leader. Kids follow him. He's not very vocal, but he leads by his actions. There was a game last year where the teams were starting to throw bubble screens to get him out of position. He made the play about 5 times, and the kids fed off that energy and got really excited. Our defense played very well that night. Physically, he's very good with his hands. He's trying to become a better pass rusher off the edge. He works well. He works religiously with our defensive coordinator, trying to become a better player because he wants to be the total football player. That's what's unique about both he and his brother. They want to be total football players. Again, that is Riverdale head football coach Will Kreisky. If you look at my write-up on Caleb Herring, this is kind of how I break him down as a prospect. Number one thing that jumps off the charts, he has a motor. It's absolutely his best characteristic. He can chase down plays from the backside. He's got long strides. He's got a high motor. He's got that want to. Coaches love that. Not only does he have a high motor, but he's got a quick burst off the edge as well, whether it's at the line of scrimmage or when playing in space. He displays great acceleration once he deciphers that play. His athleticism allows him to make plays in space. He's long. He uses his body to put him in position to chase on the ball carrier. He's also a really good contained player. When you play on the edge, you got to play contain, never giving up his outside half. And his play recognition is really, really good. Once he gets here to Knoxville, of course, he'll play his senior season in 2022. He is going to need to add some weight. All right. 6'5" frame. He needs to add at least 15 to 20 pounds, probably more than that, to be completely honest with you. He weighs about I put it in here somewhere. He weighs about, wow, look at me not doing my job. He is 6'5", 210 pounds right now, but he needs to get even bigger than that. So that's the biggest thing that he'll need to work on over the next year. His quickness, I wouldn't expect any type of drop off there when he starts to gain that weight. He also needs to learn how to operate out of a 3-point stance, because in high school, even when on the edge, he's always in a 2-point stance. And you can operate out of a 2-point stance sometimes here at Tennessee, but look how many times Byron Young and Tyler Barron are down in 3-point stances. It's pretty much 90% of the time, right? You need to learn how to operate out of a 3-point stance. So he does good hands, just like his head coach said, his extension, his dip and rep, all that type of stuff. It's teach tape. He's going to be a really, really good player, but I think his technique will get even better and better, obviously, whenever you're repping it every single day. I mean, that jump from high school to college, and this is nothing against high school football coaches, because those guys, most of them played college football or played football at a high level, but those individuals, you do the same stuff every single day. You talk about mastering the basics. It's just like in radio. You got to do the little things every single day if you want to continue to be good at your job. Maybe that's why I'm not good at my job. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully you guys think I'm good at my job. But you do the same things every single day. It gets so repetitive. It gets so annoying, but it makes you such a good technically sound football player. And I think once you get to college and Caleb Herring does that, he'll get even better and better. But this is huge for Heupel. Again, I spoke on it a moment ago. It continues to lock down the border, shut down the states. His 5th of 8 commits have come from the state of Tennessee, 5 of 8. When you look at him on the edge, you project down the line. It's kind of hard to project because, again, that COVID year of eligibility is still hanging over everybody's heads. Tennessee could have Byron Young. Tennessee could have Roman Harrison. But Tennessee will have James Pierce, Joshua Josephs, maybe even Caleb Perry as edge players whenever Caleb Herring gets here to Tennessee. But Herring's going to be a good player. I can tell you that right now. Tennessee, this was expected for quite some time. It was always going to be Tennessee. In my opinion, it was always going to be Tennessee. He gave some thoughts to some other schools, went on some other visits, got some legitimate offers. He was a take at Georgia, at USC, at Miami, at a number of other places. And he would have had even more offers if everybody, didn't think that he was going to Tennessee, which is exactly what he was doing. But the Herring name, I think, is going to be a big one for Tennessee for years to come on the defensive side of the football. Picture this. You could have Elijah Herring playing in the middle, Caleb Herring playing on the outside. And those two guys will be teaming up for big plays for Tennessee for years to come. I'm telling you, Caleb Herring's a good player, and I think Elijah Herring's going to turn in to a good player as well. So, Tennessee, the commits keep on rolling. I don't think Tennessee will be done for the month of April. I think Tennessee's got at least one, maybe more to go here in the month of April. If you follow recruiting, I would stay tuned because I think this is going to be a good month for Tennessee. It's already been a good month for Tennessee. I'll tell you that right now. All right, when we come back, former Tennessee Vols heading to the NFL draft. what are the experts saying about the likes of Matthew Butler, Allante Taylor, Cade Maze, and Velus Jones? We'll discuss here in just a moment when Locked On Vols returns. But with the ever-increasing makes and models right now, it's impossible for your local chain of auto parts store to stock up on all the parts that you may need. Why endure the pointless and seemingly intimidating questioning that comes from the person behind the counter as they wait to try to find what you need through their warehouse, through their computers, through their websites, when you can do it yourself? I mean, everybody's got a phone, right? See my phone right here. You watch on YouTube. I need a new phone, but that's beside the point. Go to rockauto.com, and they've been doing it online to customers like me, the do-it-yourselfers, or maybe to you, the professionals, for over 20 years. Always reliably low prices for everybody, again, for over 20 years. Why spend up to 30, 50, sometimes even 100% more on the same parts from the chain store or the car dealership when you can get it right here at rockauto.com? Their easy-to-use website, it will be just picture perfect for you to go through, and it's very, very user friendly. So right now, go to rockauto.com. Hey, I've got some AC problems right now. It's nothing major, but it's the little. I'm not a car person, okay? I'm just not. It's the fan in there that spins, essentially that cools down the whole system. Yeah, it's not spinning right now. All right, I'm going to go rockauto.com when I get done recording the show, and I'm going to get that part to fix my car. I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to learn, because it's going to be so much cheaper than spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars for somebody to come and do it that'll take 10 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So go to rockauto.com like me right now. That's rockauto.com. Let me slow down. rockauto.com. See all the parts available for your car or your truck. Right Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit my friends at rockauto.com. Just a couple more minutes to go left here on this edition of Locked On Vols. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen. It's available wherever you get your podcast every single morning and on YouTube. You like the new little virtual setup I have here on YouTube? I don't know if I like it that much. I might go back just to the normal, get rid of the frame, but nonetheless, you can find it on YouTube as well. I appreciate you guys so much for hanging out with me each and every day. All right, so I'm doing some research, and I didn't go to all the different publications and all the different experts because, quite frankly, I just don't have time to do that. But Tennessee's got four guys that will likely be drafted next weekend, and depending on where you look, you're hearing different things about different guys. I mean, somebody asked me last night, or asked all of us in the VolQuest chat, about like who do we think is going to be the first Vol drafted. And everywhere I look, it's everybody talking about Velus Jones. Everybody loves Velus Jones. He might be the fourth guy drafted. I mean, it's just when you're day 3 picks, it's really about best need or best available or highest need for, per team, all that type of stuff. So it could be jumbled around right there, right? But Matthew Butler is a guy that's could potentially be a day 2 pick. I mean, he really could. I think Matthew Butler is going to be the guy that's going to be drafted first now. You go to the Sporting News. They did a full 7-round mock draft earlier this week. And Matthew Butler, they have him going in the 3rd round, 94th overall, to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, wouldn't that be something? That's towards the end of the 3rd round, obviously, but it's day 2. That would be a Friday night, and you could see Matthew Butler's name being selected. Matthew Butler, when you look at his draft profile at NFLDraft.com, he's given a grade of 6.17. That is graded as a good backup with the potential to develop into a starter. We know about Matthew Butler. He brings a lunch pail to work every single day. He's just going to work. And it will not surprise me if he plays 13 years in the National Football League and just being a role player. That's the type of guy that Matthew Butler is. Here's what Mel Keiper Jr. had to say on Matthew Butler. Want a day 3 pick who will play a long time in this league? That's Butler. I love his tape. He rarely left the field for the Volunteers the past 2 seasons. At 6'4", 297 pounds, he can split double teams or blow them up and is incredibly disruptive. He had 7 sacks from the interior since 2020. Turn on the film from the Alabama game to see him wreak havoc on the Crimson Tide, even in a blowout loss. I mean, that was not a blowout loss in the last 5 minutes of the game, but whatever. Like I said, his stamina and consistent effort is rare for a 300-pounder to be in this league. He's not going to be an every down player early in his career, but he has the tools to get there. This is his projection. Mel Keiper. I have a round 4 grade on Butler, but I still feel like I might be underrating him. You can bet I'll be mentioning him in my draft grades in 2 weeks. So Matthew Butler getting a whole lot of praise from a lot of publications, including, I call him kind of the godfather of the NFL draft. That is Mel Keiper Jr. All right, let's move on. Who could be next? Well, again, it can go in a number of different directions, but according to the Sporting News, quarterback Allante Taylor would be going next. They have him going in the 4th round, pick 124th overall to the Philadelphia Eagles. If that's the case, that sucks, Allante. Make the most of it. The city of Philadelphia is just awful. But that's where the Sporting News has Allante Taylor going. You look at his draft profile, and he is graded out at the exact same grade as Matthew Butler, 6.17. Good backup with the potential to develop into a starter. I also think that he can play safety in the National Football League. Quite frankly, I've seen him get toasted, a couple of times, more than a couple of times. He's got the speed. He runs a 4.3. I mean, he's got the speed. It's just, man, he looks lost out there at cornerback sometimes. So he might even play safety at the next level, but he will be drafted, and he's a guy that I think will stick around for quite some time as well. You move on. You've got Cade Maze, according to Sporting News, who will be selected next. He's coming in with a 5th-round grade at 173 overall, 173rd, and they've got Cade going to the New York Giants. Well, wouldn't that be interesting? That'd be a horrible situation for Cade Mays, but they have Cade Mays drafted with a grade, at 5.95. This is NFL's draft profile grade. 5.95 for Cade Mays. That is average backup or special teamer. So you'd like for it to be a little higher there. I mean, at one point in time, you thought Cade Mays was going to be a day 1 draft pick, but, day 2, potentially early on in his career. We all thought he was going to be a day 1 draft pick. Injuries kept him off the field for a lot of times. He was playing out of a system at points in times, playing out of position a lot of times. But it is what it is. He'll be drafted. He'll make some money. 5.95 is the grade for Cade Mays given by the NFL draft profile, and a 5th-round selection mock by the Sporting News to the New York Giants. And then lastly, you've got Velus Jones, who I think could also be selected first out of this group for Tennessee. The Sporting News has him being selected in the 6th round, 209th pick overall by the Cincinnati Bengals. Wouldn't that be fun? All right, you got Joe Burrow. You got T. Higgins, okay? I mean, you've got, the LSU guy that I'm blanking on his name right now, who's just a flipping stud. I mean, you got Tyler Boyd. Why can I remember Tyler Boyd's name, but not the flipping wide receiver from LSU that had a fantastic year this past year that plays for the Bengals and was selected in the 1st round, 5th overall. See, I can tell you all about him. I can only multitask so much so I can look it up. LSU receiver. I know you guys are thinking I'm just an idiot right now. He was a Pro Bowl this past year, and he was awesome, and I still can't find him. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my gosh. Bengals wide receivers. Bengals. I'm going to cut this out. I've got to cut this out. It's going to bug me. Jamar Chase. Oh, dear Lord. That took entirely too long. I apologize. Jamar Chase. So how much fun would that be if Velus Jones played on the same team, potentially in the same huddle as Jamar Chase, as T. Higgins, as Tyler Boyd? That could be a whole lot of fun. And then you throw in Velus Jones as a 4th wide receiver. He'll also be a special teamers for sure. But that's kind of what the Sporting News thinks about him. 6th round, 209th overall to Cincinnati. He is graded out per his draft profile at... well, his page won't load here. Here we go, 5.93. That is an average backup again, or a special teamer. So that's kind of what we look like a week out. A week from tomorrow will be the start of the NFL draft. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun. I know a lot of you guys are draft enthusiasts, and I would expect by the weekend to be over that Tennessee will have 4 guys drafted. Potentially Theo Jackson sitting right there, Javonte Payton. Those guys will sign likely undrafted free agent deals, but who knows? Maybe they could be drafted as well. But that's kind of an update right now where they stand. All right, that'll do it here for this Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. Guys, thanks so much. Can't thank you enough for taking the time and hanging out with me. And now on that note for the NFL Draft, check out the Locked On NFL Draft podcast and Eric Crocker. You got Ryan Tracy. They do an awesome job leading you up to the NFL Draft, giving you all the things you want to hear. Make that your second listen. That's the Locked On NFL Draft podcast right after Locked On Vols, which is your first listen. All right, Wednesday shows in the books. We'll continue on the rest of the week, a Thursday and Friday. Guys, thank you as always, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody.